Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India and US signal resumption of trade talks. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump call each other close friends, express optimism of successful outcome from trade talks. In Nepal, army extends curfew, issues prohibitory orders. India ups security on borders. Prime Minister Modi says Nepal's stability vital to India. Poland shoots down Russian drones after unprecedented airspace violation. Ukraine calls for strong response. India achieves major milestone in its journey towards clean energy. Non-fossil capacity tripled in a decade. And in sports, India begin Asia Cup campaign against host UAE in Dubai today. Prime Minister Modi has termed India and the US as close friends and natural partners. In a social media post, he said, and I quote him here, "I'm confident that our trade negotiations will pave the way for unlocking the limitless potential of India-US partnership. Our teams are working to conclude these discussions at the earliest. I'm also looking forward to speaking with President Trump. We will work together to secure a brighter, more prosperous future for both our people." And just hours after Prime Minister Modi posted on X, US President Donald Trump reposted the comments made by PM Modi on Truth Social. Earlier on social media platform Truth Social, Trump had said that India and the US will continue negotiations to address the trade barriers. In a social media post, he had said, and I quote, "I am pleased to announce that India and the United States of America are continuing negotiations to address the trade barriers between our two nations. I look forward to speaking with my very good friend, Prime Minister Modi, in the upcoming weeks. I feel certain that there will be no difficulty in coming to a successful conclusion for both of our great countries." Earlier, DD India's Saurabh Shukla sent us a report from Washington, D.C. on the significance of India-US trade talks resumption.
I think this is a very big development, if you ask me. And if you see Prime Minister Narendra Modi's post on X and earlier President Trump's post on Truth Social, announcing the resumption of these trade talks and also the personal chemistry between the two leaders. If you ask me, the most consequential part, and I was there in White House today as well till late, and I can tell you that President Trump accords the highest respect for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this whole thaw, if you ask me, it's a thaw of sorts, has come around only because of the personal chemistry between the two leaders. And that's the reason why this is a clear signal, if you ask me, not only to resume these trade talks, but also to make sure that both the countries expedite their partnership across sectors. This is not about trade alone. This is about India and the US working together for a safer, prosperous, and a world where both the countries' strategic interest is preserved. So I think this is a very, very important development, and we should not only hail it, but also build from it. I do expect that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump will talk, and at some stage there will be a meeting between the two as well. But I would say that the trade deal and these talks and tariffs is just a small part of it. Obviously, India made sure that its own national interest was not compromised, and there was a clear message coming from Prime Minister Modi, and President Trump also understood that concern that India had, and that's the reason why you see this kind of a thaw coming out, which is will be a major step forward, not only for both the countries, but also a lot of other countries who were watching this very closely. I think the mood here in Washington is very clear, and there is a sense that of relief. You asked me, because there are a lot of people, even in the U.S. administration, who wanted this deal with India because they realized the importance of India in global affairs. They also realized that India is an important partner of the United States, and obviously they didn't want this. The trade dispute to cloud the entire bilateral partnership. I would say that India-US relationship is much more multifaceted, whether it's in defense, strategic arena, on technology, on artificial intelligence. There are a lot more that both the countries can do together, even on critical minerals. So I think that message has gone on, and in the Trump White House, let me tell all of your viewers that President Trump defines the policy. The fact that he has a respect for the Prime Minister, the fact that he has great chemistry, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that really played a big impact, and that will continue to have an impact on this overarching relationship that we have between the two countries. I think it's in both the countries' interest to make sure that there are enough and more opportunities for these leaders to meet and to continue to engage with each other, to make sure that any small differences that the two countries have can be ironed out with the leader-to-leader diplomacy, which really carries a lot of weight in the Trump White House.
All right, moving on. Indian Armed Forces contingent comprising 65 personnel will participate in the multilateral joint military exercise Zapad 2025 with Russian forces from today. The 7-day exercise will be held at the Mulino training ground in Russia's Nizhny. The contingent comprises 57 Indian Army personnel along with 7 personnel from Indian Air Force and 1 from the Indian Navy. Exercise Zapad 2025 is designed to enhance military cooperation and interoperability among two nations. The drills will provide a platform for exchanging tactics, techniques and procedures, particularly in conventional warfare and counter-terrorism operations. The exercise also aims to integrate emerging technologies and improve the ability of forces to operate in a multinational environment. And India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan is visiting UAE to strengthen India-UAE ties in education and research. Over the 2 days, the minister will hold meetings with key leaders, policymakers, academics, investors and the Indian diaspora. He will also visit leading education and skilling institutions in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and explore new areas of cooperation. The visit will strengthen India-UAE collaboration in education, skilling, innovation and youth empowerment, creating new opportunities for students and professionals. And after days of violent anti-government protests in Nepal, the Nepal army took charge of the security in the country. Soldiers patrolled the streets of Kathmandu on Wednesday amid indefinite curfew in Nepal's capital following deadly anti-graft protests that prompted Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. The worst upheaval in decades in the poor Himalayan nation was sparked by a social media ban unveiled last week but rolled back after 19 people died on Monday as police fired tear gas and rubber bullets to control the crowd. No protests were reported in the capital, but about 26 people trying to create trouble on the outskirts of Kathmandu had been taken into custody. The Nepal army also appealed for public cooperation, urging citizens not to engage in or support destructive acts. Following hours of violent protests in Kathmandu and other parts of the country, the Nepal army announced to take charge of security operations. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday chaired a meeting of Cabinet Committee on Security to discuss developments in Nepal, where violent protests have toppled the government, and stressed that stability, peace and prosperity of the country are of utmost importance to India. Prime Minister Modi said the violence in Nepal, in which at least 19 people have lost their lives, is heartrending and appealed to people in Nepal to support peace. The stability, peace and prosperity of Nepal are of utmost importance to India. Meanwhile, border districts of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand have been put on high alert, and security across all border posts and vulnerable points has been beefed up. High alert has been sounded in Uttar Pradesh's 7 districts bordering Nepal, including Maharajganj, Siddharthnagar and Lakhimpur Kheri. Additional forces had been deployed to border police stations. Intelligence agencies have also been directed to maintain close watch. Intensified patrolling is also being undertaken on highways, village tracks and forest routes connecting the two countries. Meanwhile, flight operations have been temporarily suspended in all airports amid unrest. Flight operations to and from Nepal will remain suspended till 12 p.m. on Wednesday, with the army taking control of Sri Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu. Time now for a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Emmanuel Macron appoints loyalist Sébastien Lecornu as France's new Prime Minister. First, 2 Brazilian judges vote to convict Jair Bolsonaro in coup plot trial. And US judge blocks Trump effort to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook.
This week on Defense Dynamics, from choke points to commands, the Indo-Pacific is on the edge. India and Singapore forge the Indo-Pacific Shield. Can deterrence hold at sea lanes? GST 2.0, when tax reforms fuels combat readiness. China's Dragon Parade dazzles with power. What lies beneath the camouflage paint? And India's theatre commands are not an option but a necessity. Catch it all on Defense Dynamics this Wednesday at 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Poland shot down drones that entered its airspace during a widespread Russian attack in western Ukraine on Wednesday, with the NATO member calling the incursion an act of aggression. Poland's military command said drones repeatedly violated Polish airspace during the Russian attack across the border in western Ukraine, but that operations against these violations had now concluded. The command said radars tracked more than 10 objects and those that could pose a threat were neutralized. It urged people to stay at home, naming the regions of Podlaskie, Mazowiecki and Lublin as most at risk. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that he was in constant contact with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Tusk has called for an emergency meeting of the Council of Ministers at 0600 GMT. Chopin Airport in Warsaw, the country's largest, announced that its airspace was closed due to military actions. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration earlier said Chopin was one of 4 Polish airports to be temporarily closed, including Rzeszów and Jastrzębie Airport. And Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani has issued a strong warning to Israel following a missile strike on Doha on Tuesday, calling the incident a clear violation of Qatar's sovereignty and an act of regional destabilization. The Qatar PM said Qatar reserved the right to respond to this blatant attack.
تؤكد دولة قطر Qatar affirms that it will not tolerate any violation of its sovereignty or territorial integrity. It will respond firmly to any reckless breach or aggression that threaten its security and undermine its regional stability. Qatar reserves the right to respond to this blatant attack and will take all necessary measures to address it.
Reaffirming his commitment to mediating peace, Al Thani said mediation efforts are part of the Qatari identity and nothing would deter its role in that regard.
Mediation in Qatari diplomacy is part of our identity and will continue. Nothing will deter us from carrying on this role in all the various issues surrounding us in the region.
Multiple explosions rocked Doha on Tuesday in what Israel has confirmed was a targeted airstrike against senior Hamas leaders. The Israel Defense Forces and the Shin Bet security agency claimed responsibility for it, marking the first known Israeli strike on Qatari soil. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel takes full responsibility for the strikes, calling it an independent military action. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said decision to strike Qatar was made by Israeli PM Netanyahu and not by him. He added that he had promptly instructed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to notify Qatari officials about the attack, but it was too late to stop it.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
Hours after Israeli strikes against top Hamas leaders in Qatar's Doha, India's Ministry of External Affairs on Tuesday expressed concern over air strikes, urging all parties to exercise restraint and pursue diplomacy to maintain peace in the region. Now, Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog International Atomic Energy Agency reached a deal on resuming inspections at nuclear sites, including those bombed by the US and Israel in June. The agreement was signed in Cairo by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi. It was Iran's first high-level meeting with the IAEA since it suspended cooperation with the agency following the 12-day conflict with Israel in June, which saw Israeli and US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. IAEA Chief Grossi described the agreement as an important step in the right direction.
This is a step in the right direction. This is a door we are opening. And of course, there are many things that still need to happen. We have to implement it in good faith. Others around the world can help us. And I am sure that they will do right that.
Iranian Foreign Minister, however, warned that any move to reimpose UN sanctions would halt the practical steps set out in the deal.
I shall stress that in case of any hostile act against my country, and in the event of reimposition of terminated United Nations Security Council resolutions, Iran will regard these practical steps as terminated.
French President Emmanuel Macron has named loyalist Sébastien Lecornu as Prime Minister on Tuesday, defying expectations he might tack towards the left. Macron made the appointment one day after his last Prime Minister, Francois Bayrou, was ousted in a parliamentary confidence vote over his efforts to cut public spending. However, Macron's office said the president had asked Lecornu to hold talks with all political forces in parliament to find compromises on the budget and other policies before naming his cabinet. Lecornu will become Macron's fifth prime minister in less than 2 years after parliament ousted Francois Bayrou on Monday over his plans to tame the country's ballooning debt. The news of his appointment was greeted with derision by leftist parties who called for voters to express their disdain in nationwide Block Everything protest on Wednesday. And President Macron did not take long to name a new prime minister, but along with it, France seems to be heading into a renewed period of unrest. With frustration over austerity plans boiling over, Grassroots groups have called for a nationwide Block Everything movement on Wednesday that aims to paralyze transport, schools and daily life. Political parties and unions have expressed their disbelief and discontent on social media. Numerous users demanded that the French leader dissolve the National Assembly and call snap elections. Messages circulating online have urged supporters to blockade Paris Ring Road, Europe's busiest urban motorway with 1.2 million vehicles a day, and even sabotage power at certain metro and train stations. Now, the US Supreme Court agreed to hear arguments in November on the legality of President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs after his administration asked for an expedited ruling on the issue. A lower court found that Trump exceeded his authority in tapping emergency economic powers to impose wide-ranging duties but allowed them to temporarily stay in place, giving Trump time to take the fight to the top court. Since returning to the presidency in January, Trump has invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose reciprocal tariffs on almost all US trading partners. U.S. federal judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked President Donald Trump from removing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook as a lawsuit challenging her termination plays out in court. Judge Gia Cobb's issuance of a preliminary injunction in the case came nearly 2 weeks after Cook sued Trump to prevent him from becoming the first president in history to remove a Fed governor for purported cause. Trump said on August 25 that he was firing Cook because of suggestions by Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pult that she had committed mortgage fraud. Those documents were signed before she joined the Fed. Cook, who is the first black woman to serve on the Fed board, denies any wrongdoing. Trump has demanded that the U.S. Central Bank cut rates immediately and aggressively, berating Fed Chair Jerome Powell. The central bank is expected to deliver a rate cut at its September 16 to 17 policy meeting. Updates from Brazil now. As the second day of judges voting in Brazilian ex-President Jair Bolsonaro's coup trial wraps up, his lawyer rejects the first two votes to convict. Two judges in Bolsonaro's coup trial votes to convict him, with three others yet to give their verdicts. Bolsonaro faces over 40 years in prison if at least 3 of the 5 judges find him guilty of seeking to stay in power. Supreme Court Justice Alexander de Moraes, the first to cast his vote in proceedings that could last until Friday, said Brazil nearly returned to dictatorship after 40 years of democracy. After Moraes, Judge Flávio Dino, a former justice minister under Lula, also voted to convict. 3 more judges are set to vote over 3 days from Wednesday in a public session broadcast live. Judges can change their vote until a final verdict is reached with a majority of 3 needed. Only then will sentencing deliberations begin. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro's senator son Flávio, who voted to convict his father, accused the court of executing a judicial lynching without legal basis or evidence. Now, in Bangladesh, a panel backed by Islami Chhatra Shibir, the student wing of Jamaat-e-Islami, has secured a decisive victory in Dhaka University Central Students' Union elections. According to official results, the Shibir supported candidates Abu Shadi Qaim as Vice President, SM Farhad as General Secretary and Mohiuddin Khan as Assistant General Secretary emerged victorious with formidable vote margins. However, opposing factions, particularly candidates affiliated with Bangladesh Nationalist Party's Chhatra Dal and independent panels, vocally rejected the results as shamelessly rigged and accused the administration of favoritism towards the Shibir-backed group. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. In Ecatepec municipality of the state of Mexico, more than 170,000 residents took part in a massive drive that set a Guinness World Record for the largest street cleanup aimed at promoting a cleaner and healthier environment. The initiative highlighted the power of community participation and encouraged citizens to take responsibility for their public spaces. In Turkey's Divrigi, the Great Mosque and Hospital, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is hailed as the Alhambra of Anatolia for its beautiful gates and stone carvings. Built in 1228, it has stood for over 8 centuries as a symbol of faith and art. After a 9-year restoration, it reopened last year for worshippers and visitors. In Vietnam's Hanoi, wards and communes have launched a digital literacy movement to help citizens access and practice e-government services in their own communities. At a hall in Linh Nam ward, residents are learning digital skills and getting on-site support with tasks like birth registration completed in minutes. And India's energy landscape has witnessed a remarkable transformation in just a decade. In 2014, the country had only 81 gigawatts of non-fossil capacity. By 2025, that figure has soared to nearly 250 gigawatts, more than tripling in just 10 years. Guided by the vision of Prime Minister Modi, this growth reflects India's rapid expansion in solar, wind, hydro and nuclear energy. Today, clean energy contributes nearly half of the nation's total power capacity, 5 years ahead of global targets. In sports, India will begin their Asia Cup campaign against host United Arab Emirates in Dubai on Wednesday. India starts as firm favourites, but plenty of debates and discussions looms over the probable Indian 11 for the tournament. Despite doing reasonably well in recent outings, wicketkeeper Sanju Samson is expected to vacate the opener slot for returning Shubman Gill, named vice-captain for the squad. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.